All right, we are here with Phil Bledsoe. Phil, you are front of house for Sam Hunt.
That's right. Yeah.
First off, thank you for having me here. We are in Alpharetta, Georgia. And there is one thing missing from this that we usually have. There is not a front of house console here, yet you run front of house. What's happening right now?
Well, you're taking up the space for my console, so
I need to.
this is an extra special moment for you. I figured I'd give you front and center.
You know,
No, we have a truck broken down. It should be here in the next half hour or so.
Okay.
But it's not a challenge. We've done this before. Multiple festivals where we have trucks break down.
Yep.
Gear comes in late, and we still put on a show.
You do.
Yeah.
If there was a console here, what would the console be?
Yamaha Rivage PM5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so let me ask you this. I'm gonna start from the beginning. How did you get into sound? What got you into this whole running sound gig?
I probably, the very, very beginning is I DJ'd pep rallies at my high school.
Did you really?
And then I was in a band. I actually grew up around the Atlanta area, and I was in a band here for a little while and took off and went to Nashville to actually help learn more about the music business with my band. And then as I lived in Nashville, started picking up gigs with other artists that I used to play with, and then just never went back to playing. Yeah.
Okay.
This little weekend warrior stuff, and then finally I had some professors tell me, why are you even here? You're already doing what you're trying to get a degree to do, so come back if you're ever bored, but keep going on the road with what you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can you walk me through the trajectory of interested in sound and doing front of house? What was your trajectory to that? Did you go through a production house? Did you?
No, like I said, because I had played with a lot of the artists that I used to, like I was a performer and they were a performer. And then I was just like, hey, we know each other, and you know that I like to do sound or have done enough sound to get into a mess. I just started picking up random weekend gigs with them, and then bumped into different people as you do, just networking at festivals and stuff.
Yep.
And slowly kept climbing some sort of ladder and to where I am now.
Okay. Now,
waiting for my console to get here.
How'd you get connected with Sam Hunt?
Nate Smith, the production manager, is an old friend of mine. We worked together in the business several years ago, and he had called and just said, hey, I just need a no drama solution to come in and jump into this camp really quick. I know that you're wanting to get off the road, but Sam only does, at the time he was only doing 30 something shows for the rest of the year. So he just said, hey, if you can come out, I can help maximize family time for you back at home, and I just come out and throw together a mix and
What a
keep it
great
simple.
blessing.
Yeah.
How cool was that?
Yeah.
Now, for your setup, how much native are you running? How much are you doing plugins? So let me ask you that.
I'm doing everything in the console, except
All native,
for,
no plugins, no?
Last year we had a couple of really big pop moments in the show. Our bass player, Sam, does such a really great job at highlighting all of our players. So our bass player covered a little quick cover of Peaches, and our guitar player, which will happen again tonight, does a Dua Lipa moment.
Wow, there's the first.
And so
Vince was here before.
our guitar player does a Dua Lipa moment, and so I was able to just do some quick, like using Live Professor outboard routes to do some really poppy tuning stuff. But otherwise, I do nothing else. I have a bass player, keyboard player, and guitar player tuned through Live Professor, and if that ever goes away, it can, because they're incredible anyway. I just speed up that transition to make it feel a lot more poppy during those moments. But otherwise, everything else I do is in the console.
Okay. Can you talk to me about your approach to sound check and tuning? I know you're headlining on this tour, and you've got a SE here for this. How involved are you with that?
Not too involved. Honestly, he and I are so similar. And we've worked together for years, and in many cases he's come in and filled in with me, whether it's been a church mix gig or a corporate gig where we've just kind of swapped seats, and we work so similarly that it's not a big deal at all. This year we kind of started with, hey, in my 5 years with Sam, this is my first time having a PA. So it's always been either direct support on a major stadium tour or fairs and festivals or something else. So this is my first time having my own
PA
gig.
du jour.
And yes, exactly. And I've always had to deal with it, and it's always just been fun, you know.
So talk to me about this PA. Why'd you land on this one? And what is it?
This is KSL mains, XSL outhangs, and I would get everything else wrong. The flown subs. Yeah, really sorry, but I know
No,
it's,
you're
I know
great.
it's SL subs, but I don't know
Okay.
what the flowns are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just, I mean, Joe and I are in love with D&B no matter what. But Joe has taken this rig out on multiple corporate events, and he knows this rig like the back of his hand. So he's great at tuning it. He's great at dialing it all in. And we just have this camaraderie between us that I look over at him during the show, and he'll look at me and be like, 2K? And I'll be like, yeah, 2K. Like, we don't even have to really talk much.
Yeah.
So that's been great. I just have this feeling that all the major manufacturers are putting out quality gear. So I'm not super picky, but I do love knowing what I'm going to get every night with this D&B rig,
Yeah.
for sure.
So let me ask you this. I have some newer engineers that watch this show. What advice would you give to the newer engineers that want to be running front of house for a headline tour? Or what advice would you give to yourself starting off?
The biggest advice, it's probably a 2 or 3-fold. Number one, stay calm. I've said it 3 times just today to someone else because we're waiting for our gear to show up still. Is what makes us professionals is not what we do behind the fader, it's how we respond to problems.
That's good.
So the other variation of that is I get paid to be here for an hour and a half every day. I get hired for the other 22 and a half hours because I'm not a jerk.
That is good.
We all get along, we're all groovy.
Say that again.
I get paid to be here for an hour and a half. I have a job for the other 22 and a half.
Oh, that is good.
How you get along with people on the bus, and the
Yeah.
way I responded at 9 a.m. this morning when they said the truck wouldn't be here till 5.
Yeah.
And all of us, the way all of us did, not just me. But that's one thing, is just be cool, be groovy. Don't make yourself a spotlight at all.
Yeah.
Disappear into the background so that, you know, no one has to worry about you. The other part of it is the technicality part, and that is, do you need me to stop for that?
Yeah, that's that. Don't mind, sorry. It's going to go right over us.
That's all right.
All right. Sorry about that. We had a helicopter flying up, but
Sure.
Your second point?
My second point is just the technicality of it all. Being very familiar with your console file. Absolutely work on a proper gain structure. Like, I completely redid my entire show file this year to be Yamaha compliant. So
Okay.
where I used to hit every preamp really hard and just go big on all my inputs, this year I fixed my gain structures to be -18 on all my inputs. And I know if I load that file anywhere else and I dial up my inputs to -18, I'm going to be really close to my file.
Explain that to the new people. Gain structure. What does that mean if you're, if my mom's watching this? What does that mean,
Oof,
gain
gosh.
structure?
Now I don't even know. I was doing a good job until now. No, I mean every input.
And why is that important?
Every input has an input level, period. So
Yeah.
I mean, line level, mic level. That's a whole other discussion as well.
Sure.
But when I'm looking at my console and I have a range from, I don't know, -40 to +20 on a console, I need to make sure, no matter what that number is, let's forget everything I just said about Yamaha standard.
Yep.
No matter what that number is, if I decide it's -6 or +3 or whatever that is, every one of my channels needs to be gained up to a specific standard. You can't have some at +3 and some at -6 and hope that you could ever fly into another gig or work on another console file and hope that it translates the same way every day.
Yeah.
You'll be starting from scratch every single day.
Yeah.
So similar mics, have a gain structure number in your head, no matter what it is, and then just feel comfortable with your file, period. I have a friend that just picked up a new gig recently, and those were the things I told him specifically. You're going to be working on console of the day every single day at festivals and fairs. Know what you want to get to and know how to get there, and then feel confident in your own ability to do it.
Okay. So You're using a digital desk. You've been in this for a little while. Did you start off on digital or you start off in analog?
Started off in analog, so
Okay.
that was late 90s.
Okay.
Started in analog, and I was, I'm lucky to have been in that transition between analog and digital. So some clubs was analog console. The next night would have been the same PA probably, but on a digital console.
Sure.
So it was really nice to be able to feel all of that transition happen. But of course, long before YouTube and training videos and things like that.
Yeah. So why the PM10? Well, have you always been using that on this tour?
The PM5?
Or I'm sorry, PM5.
It's okay.
I was speaking prophetically.
No, when I started with Sam, I started with the gear that was already there from the previous front of house guy. So
Okay.
he had an SD12 and a Waze rack and stuff like that. So I just came in and just tried to narrow it all down to keep things as simple as possible. Got rid of the rack and just kept it to the SD12. There's my truck. I just heard the air brakes.
I am.
No, I just kept it with the SD12, and I just started digging in deep to it and working on that. And then after a few years, part of it boredom, the other part just wanting to move into something that was had a little bit more onboard options, because I just still want to keep everything inside the box as much as possible, just eliminate so many issues. I like to be as flexible as possible. We spoke earlier, I want to be able to move into a space, stay on wheels on my rack, and then just move around and leave space for everybody else to do their job well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when we talked earlier, my favorite analogy was the paintbrush you were
Yeah.
talking about. Could you say that expand on that a little bit?
I really just say I should be able to paint. If I call myself an artist, I should be able to paint with a brush that I'm given. So whether it's a PA or a room or a console, now that becomes a very limited comment when I'm talking about poorly tuned drums. You just can't.
Sure.
You just
sure.
can't make it perfect. But yeah, I don't get very, very console specific. I'm not super needy. We do fly dates. I've got files for different consoles. I just need I need more logistics than I need a specific console. I need something that allows me to do multiple talkbacks or squawks and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I can't be working on an M32 and whatever. But if you gave it to me, I try to paint with it, period.
Let me ask you this: the future of audio engineering. I know we got to kind of wrap it up. Do you feel? What do you feel like the future of audio engineering is? I know some people think it's Atmos. Some people think it's maybe AI. Where do you see as or what gets you excited?
My thoughts on the future of audio engineering is somebody in a cubicle in a call center in India somewhere. That's my biggest fear.
Complaining about bass. Hello, how may I help you?
As the internet continues to grow and bandwidth continues to get bigger, I'm like super afraid that there's going to be multiple people with cans on somewhere in an office somewhere mixing shows live, and it's going to take all the energy. I mean, all of that experience that we get to have in the room and the energy out of it. I was just talking to a driver yesterday. He was a bus driver, and he said, I don't understand why you guys don't just put the console in an isolated bus somewhere in a space and mix outside and free up all these seats. And I said, well, we do. It's called a broadcast truck. But also, I want to feel the energy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. No one walks out humming the kick drum. If they're not singing every lyric that Sam sings, or at least getting into the show, it does not matter how my kick sounds or how my snare sounds. None of that's a big deal to me if I'm having a bad night personally, as long as I can look around and see people singing along.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. So I need to be in this space. I need to know how the space is translating that mix. And it scares me to death to think that somewhere down the road, bandwidth may open up and people may be mixing remotely.
Yeah. Do you have any secret sauce or any tips that you want to give to share a little bit about?
I don't know, man. There are things that I do specifically. I have this really silly thing that I use in my head, like for all my drums. It's called the 6-3 rule, 63 hertz and 6.3 kilohertz. And so there's a lot of scooping in the middle, but if I can use that high end to trigger your brain, like this little psycho-sensitive trigger to listen to what's after, then I don't have to have what's after as loud. So when that tom hits, if there's some pretty good attack on that tom, then the tone of that tom, your brain is triggered to listen to what comes after. I don't have to have the tone filling up all of the
Sure.
all the audio real estate, as it were.
I do have some seasoned touring guys that watch this, and one of the things I've heard and that has been asked of me to ask for people is, I don't think, and especially this message to some of the newer people that are thinking about wanting to tour, it's not all roses and rainbows, and it is a tough job, and there are some people who have fallen to either substance abuse or depression, and some people who have, tried to end it all or have succeeded. We both know people who have done that.
Sure.
And how do you keep your sanity through this? How do you keep grounded, and how do you keep your head on straight through in a different place all the time? I know of many people whose marriages have failed, families have failed. So how do you find success here, also find success at home, and also find success mentally through all of this?
Sure. I have a wife of 21 years, and I have 2 kids, 11 and 6, almost 7. And I'm really, really fortunate in this camp that I have a team that will absolutely encourage time, period. So I've had, my wife had some medical issues last year, and I was boarding a plane, and I was told immediately, turn around and get off the plane, we got you taken care of. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
Period. This team is incredible. I'm surrounded by a bunch of great guys,
Yeah.
but on the other side, I just make sure that I'm always trying to keep, this may be a little deep, but like I try to keep legacy in the forefront of my head. So I'll never remember today that I was in Alpharetta, but my kid may remember that I wasn't there for a softball game, And so I want to make sure that the legacy I'm building, whether it's quality time at home or making sure I'm connecting, or as it were last night, my youngest daughter was playing a doubleheader softball game, and I was watching the game during the show. So sending messages, texting my wife, making sure that my daughter knew I was still engaged, and then taking all that off time to make sure that they feel some sort of balance, But yeah, my wife used to tour with me before we had kids.
Oh, wow.
So early on in the rock market, she was like merch manager and assistant production manager to me.
So she kind of gets the lifestyle.
She gets it all, and she misses it. She gets out here as much as she can to just get a little taste every now and then. But she's super supportive. She's a photographer, so on our off time, I can give her all the time she needs to invest in her business. But yeah,
Hey, Lauren, I'll be right behind you. I'm just going to make sure all of our stuff.
Just keeping that legacy in mind, and how things will actually. My wife and I joke and say, let's limit how much therapy our kids are going to need in their early 20s.
There's some people who are watching this who are engineers or tech people who are kind of in dark spots, and I've gotten some phone calls, and even the toughest time is coming home and dealing with that when you get home. What advice would you give to them that are going through those tough times to stay grounded, to keep your head on straight?
Yeah, my wife and I, having toured together before, and now we used to always say, it would take us a couple of days to kind of get to know each other again, and then it would take a day or two to kind of have that sort of blissful, here we are back with each other, and then of course we'd leave again and start the whole cycle. And we would also say versions of, we can do anything for 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever the tour came. It was just like, man, that's gonna suck, but we can do anything for this amount of time. All that changes with kids for sure, because again, I don't know if my kids will miss me being at a cross-country meet, or if they had a bad day getting off the bus or something like that, but I'll never remember where I am today, and they may remember that I'm not there with them. So I would just say, choose, and I don't even mean this in a religious sense, choose something sacred, whatever that sacred is, and always keep it sacred, whether it's time with your significant other, whether it's time with yourself, whatever that is, make sure that you choose it. If it's just sitting on the back porch in silence for 3 minutes a day, or going to your favorite restaurant, whatever that is, choose it, keep it sacred, and don't let anything get in the way of that, for sure.
Well, the truck's here. They've loaded up your stuff. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that. And if people, are you on social media? If people want to follow you?
Yeah,
Where can they
contact
find you?
Phil B on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil, thank you so much for your time. I really